So funny story. I really wanted to open this video by talking about Shin Godzilla. You know, like to praise it for creating an absolutely beautiful moment that's fully realized with just amazing, unique, and memorable sound effects. But no matter what I did to the visuals, black and white, increasing the fucking darkness of the frame so you couldn't even see Godzilla, like blurring it out. I even like blurred it out slightly like I was fucking censoring Godzilla. And I still got a copyright strike. Every time! And I think it's just because of the music, but the Toho strike kept saying it was audio-visual, which means it was both. So they could still fucking see Godzilla in this fucking blob, and they struck it. So by all means, Toho, don't allow me to praise a really good movie made by one of my favorite directors. That's really cool to you. It's really cool you don't want free advertising. Anyway, the objective of sound effects and sound design is normally to fall into the background of everything. They're meant to flesh out the world and bring it to life, while at the same time not being mixed horribly to make them stand out as unnatural. Well, at least Foley is. Foley is the process by which experts in the art of it will do sound effects live to emulate and match the subtle sounds heard in a film. Footsteps being the easiest example. You don't want the sound of a character's footsteps to dominate them talking, but you definitely want it to be there. The presence of that subtle sound drives home the realism of the world. Sound effects, however, can sometimes take over a scene, but in a good way. If there's an element of the scene that needs to stand out, or an object that's abnormal to our world, the best solution is to give it a distinct sound effect. What got me thinking about this topic was the movie Into the Spider-Verse. Great fucking movie. The Prowler's movements are matched with something that sounds like the distorted bellows of an elephant. The loud sound of an elephant's cry having a desired effect in nature of warding off predators by sounding scary, distorting it serves to kick that up a notch, and also add an element of surrealism. It's incredibly effective, as the Prowler's character in the heat of this moment is meant to be goddamn terrifying. However, something very disappointing to me in the climate of modern movies is that this is the only memorable sound effect in recent memory I can think of. I mean, by all means, the idea of a memorable sound effect would be counter to my earlier point, correct? Like I said, you're not supposed to notice the sound. Turn it up! Well, of course, but there's still a way to make things feel natural, but still sound cool and memorable. I feel like that's something we sort of lost sight of, is one of the best ways to have something really stick with people is to get something stuck in their head. The same way a catchy chorus can stay ingrained in your subconscious for all time, a memorable sound effect can as well. In terms of memorable sounds, let's think about stuff we grew up with. Pokemon. Dragon Ball Z. When you hear this sound in anything else that isn't Pokemon, the first thing you think of is still Pokemon, because this is so distinctly connected to Pokemon. Same with these sounds from DBZ. No matter where you hear them, you're always going to think of DBZ with those, because they're used very frequently and very effectively. The sound becomes part of the iconography, because no matter what, even if you're watching something that has nothing to do with that, that sound can pop up and just make you start thinking like, man, I miss Pokemon, or man, I want to watch Goku beat the shit out of Frieza again, like fucking dude. Quickly departing the video games, I've always been a big fan of the sound design in the Half-Life games. I made a point about this in another video, you should check that video out too. Same as the Prowler, the glue-on gun sounds like an elephant, but with different distortion effects applied, as well as messing with the pitch and tempo to make it loop into itself and stretch. This in a game creates something known as player feedback, and not the kind of feedback where you stick a microphone in front of a speaker so that it goes. Feedback in a game, to summarize, is when something feels just right. Something that gives you that, fuck yeah, reaction. The weapon animation helps a lot with that, but the sound effect is what really sticks with you. It also provides that secondary auditory sensory punch. I mean, the grenade launcher, dude. I don't even know why this shit sound like, but the fact that it sounds nothing like an actual of a grenade launcher and instead goes isn't even like an actual problem because it sounds wicked cool. However, some might say sounds cool, but I'd argue that almost sounds cooler because I've played the sound effects so many times that now it's gonna be stuck in your head too, fucker. The guns aren't the only thing that sound cool in this game, the ambient sounds and the aliens do as well. The computers sing to each other in the science facilities, and there's something just so distinctly unsettling and atmospheric about this broken fan blade sound. And man, don't even get me started on the soldiers. That robot voice just kind of becomes my mental voice sometimes. Like, I slip into it.
Shit, you not.
Kelly Bailey is a goddamn genius and a huge inspiration to me. Also, the scientists make funny sounds when they get hit, but that's a lot more attributed to the voice acting. GoldenEye, on the Nintendo 64, has really good pain sound effects as well. It's just a variety of that basic-ass stock pain sound effect, but the fact that it's here in this context makes them really stick with you. Also, running people over is like... and that sticks with you because the crunch coupled with the stock scream scares the crap out of you. It's not just the voices though, the rocket launcher sound. Fuck yeah, the rocket launcher sound. Rareware in general used to do really good work with memorable sound design, while still working within the limitations of the consoles they were working on. They used a lot of that basic stock sound effect stuff, but then oh my god, the sound of this revolver, dude. Hell yeah, Conker's Bad Fur Day. Hell yeah. Back to GoldenEye though. That stock punch sound effect in the heat of the game works so well. Even getting hit sounds cool because of the gasp that you make. Persona 5 really took that stock punch sound to the next level. Like, something about it, man. Hearing that legit knuckle crack with each subsequent hit to my enemy, it just so fucking good. Legit, I always have this sound in my head when I'm blocking fight scenes for animation. Like, the stock punch sounds they use sound so much cleaner and fuller, yet still have that nice thwack to it when you hit things. Actually, pretty much all the sounds in this game are cool. Even the menus sound as cool as they look. It's all when you thumb through stuff. And when the day transitions, that thud-ass knife sound is so cool. Okay, back to the film. The punch sound in Indiana Jones is super distinct. As far as I can surmise, they're doing a thing where they split the stereo data and add a slight pitch shift into half of one channel. So the end result is like a vibrating throb that spreads into the stereo data like nothing really happened. Actually, a lot of movies and games utilize this split channel effect, but none of them really do it as cool as Indiana Jones has. This is just me speculating off of my own research though. I can't say they did this for certain, it's just something I've sort of been able to emulate via a lot of research.
Okay, this will be punching red cabbage with boxing glove. Take one.
I can, however, say how Fight Club did it. I watched the documentary on fucking Fight Club. The way Fight Club did it was to put a bunch of walnuts into a dead chicken, and then punch the shit out of the chicken. And then because they wanted everything to sound as real as possible, the atmosphere of the room, they went into an actual basement so that it had that natural reverb every time they punched the chicken. LA Confidential has a nice bone crack when people get shot. Same applies to the shotgun in this movie. Like, this movie is pretty sparse with its shootouts, but that shotgun sound is on par with an FPS game. It's got so much oomph and crunch to it. LA Confidential also makes very good use of highs and low sounds for its shootouts, often having a low note from a gun in stereo being immediately juxtaposed by a high-pitched ricochet sound going off in the surrounding audio channels, or the sound of it whizzing by one of our main characters. The contrasting octaves makes the fight sequence more engaging as well as exciting, similar to how orchestras contrast low drum beats with higher horns and strings for a chilling effect. The same principle is utilized in Private Ryan, but to a more chaotic effect. This brings me to LFE, or low frequency effects. Some of you laymen might call this bass, which is typically how modern movies decide to carry feedback into a theater, and one of the reasons I feel we started to see a drought of memorable sound effects. LFE is used on subwoofers, which if powerful enough can vibrate a whole room, really making you feel, like actually feel immersed in the movie, because you can feel the sub shaking the room. And due to this, we don't really have to stress something being distinct or cool to really leave an impact, as just having a very solid mix carries the same weight. Sound designers now seem to stress the idea that everything is crisp and clean as possible, which isn't a bad thing. Like, not in the slightest. But do you really remember any of the sound effects from like half the modern movies you watched? Is there anything that's really stuck with you like all of these have? I'm gonna go ahead and do something blasphemous and say nice things about the Watchmen movie real quick. All you comic book fans out there, you can go ahead and shit on me later for this, but I own a signed copy of the book, so fuck you. On a regular basis, I use the opening scene of this movie as a test of my own home theater. It does literally everything right. The calm classical music is just a nice additive as we hyper-focus on the sound effects here. You can hear the comedian's lip purse when he pops a cigar into his mouth. The cigar burns quietly and then... I cannot undersell how amazing this sounds on a home theater. It feels like someone's actually kicked your fucking door in. And then the fight itself, fucking perfect. We got a nice mix of those subtle little notes of accuracy combined with the satisfying cracks of the punches. I love how the bullet popping from the chamber makes this little ting and then a metal hold note. And when it hits the TV, the residue has this like nice popping static at the impact point. LFE is used in full fucking force here. I already said the door being kicked open feels like legit as fuck, but each punch and smack and crack and knife is so much. But here's the problem. Not everybody has a goddamn 5.1 system in their home. So this will translate to something a lot more mundane but kind of impressive on most bad speaker systems. Sound designers never really think much about working around this. It doesn't matter much in the long run, as long as it gets the idea across, it works. But you're missing so much by having a regular stereo speaker set, or God forbid, a mono set to play this back on. Genndy Tartakovsky made a point of this when applying sound effects to Samurai Jack. Aware of the fact that early 2000s TV speakers were mediocre and a lot of them were single channel rather than two channel, he decided to use sound effects and mixing techniques that have worked just as well on a home theater as they would on a basic CRT. And for a show as sound effect and hell, even Foley-centric as this, he is a goddamn genius. Fights feel cool because Jack's sword sounds cool, hell yeah. And shit dude, half the time the sound effects are compensating for a lack of movement on screen. I made a whole video about this relating to Evangelion, go watch the Evangelion video. Atmosphere and Foley work just as well as the punchy sound effects do, as they aren't persnickety enough to only translate to the best of home theaters. Fuck yes. Thank you. I watched a few scenes from the movie Patriots Day recently, and it got me thinking about some things. Well, technically it got me thinking about a lot of things, but I'm talking sound right now, so In the Watertown shootout scene, all the gunshot and explosion sound effects are very light, crisp, and powdery. The majority of what you hear isn't the punchy sound effects of the gunshot, but the higher frequencies of pulling the trigger, or the top of the gun kicking back with each shot. This is done to make the scene seem more realistic and more chilling, and due to it relying on higher frequencies, which most speakers can accurately put out, this ends up working really well both tonally and technically. It's not a major loss to not be watching this on a full surround sound system. The recent movie Hereditary does something similar with this. Although in some scenes it does incorporate LFE very heavily to vibrate the room to make everything feel more tense, they make full use of having everything be in 5.1 surround, having very small, very precise noises bounce around between speakers.
Yes, Peter?
To help sell the tension and make sure you're fully invested and very on edge. Funny story, this movie's actually so well mixed that when I was watching it on my own sound system, I couldn't differentiate actual noises outside from the ones mixed in the ambient tracks of the film. Like, for example, a plow truck drove by outside, and for the first few seconds I heard the plow truck, I thought it was just part of the movie and not outside. Again, considering these are higher frequencies, this is something that still works on a regular speaker system. However, it's just greatly improved by being put on a 5.1 system. There's not too much lost, but there is a lot to be gained. The movie The Godfather uses ambient sounds to build tension in some situations. Thus, our focus here is more on remembering the moment rather than the sound. In this scene, where Michael Corleone is arming himself and preparing to finally violently fight for his family's honor, he pauses for a moment to collect himself and take a deep breath from all the tension. During this moment, a train passes by, and being timed so perfectly to the character's acting and the situation, that added sound just makes my fucking stomach turn with fear and anticipation. Like, it's just a train sound, so it's not like it's gonna be memorable, but the context that it enables is extremely memorable. We're also working with a predicted mono output here, being that the movie was made in the early 70s. So this will work on every sound system, as it was made to output on a very simple one. Hello there, I suddenly got a better microphone. And hey, to synchronize with this completely inconsistent increase in quality, let's talk about the modern day equivalent to what was done in The Godfather, which was done in the movie The Departed. When the isolated and paranoid undercover police officer played by Leonardo DiCaprio suddenly gets a phone call from a phone he never expected to receive calls from again, he tenses up, and the sound of his phone vibrating is in sync with his heart rate and breathing. In the heat of this moment, we are completely invested in DiCaprio's situation, as we're perfectly in sync with his body's internal metronome, aka the heart. Like, forget feeling like you're in a character's shoes, because right now we're literally fully in sync with their internal functions, to the point of hearing their pulse, albeit through a clever parable that also serves as a consistent motif in the movie. But what if we combine a distinct and memorable sound mix with the cinematic and crisp one? Ooh, we're gonna do something blasphemous again, and praise the rebuilds of Evangelion. Hot fucking take. but Unit 1 going berserk is way cooler with the cinematic mix than it is in the TV version. The balancing between the sound effects and the music is just done in a much more clean, precise, and more professional way. One element never gradually overpowering the other, and the Ava's roars sound even more inhuman. The result of all this on both my crappy CRT and later my home theater? I don't even own the Blu-ray of the first Rebuild movie. The DVD quality audio is just as cool, dude. Now while we talkin' goosebumps, 2 more examples from the Ava movies. One being Ramiel. Another being everything about Ramiel. I'm holding back tears right now. Do I even need to explain why this is cool? Like, that glass cracking with an ocean splash, at least that's what I think it is, sounds so fucking cool already. But then it screams. The lad goddamn screams. You get to anticipate this fucking straight up auditory nut, and then they give you a full climax with that.
Oh, this is good.
The ricochet sound is so cool. And the guns sound so goddamn awesome with all the bullets whizzing by in the left and right channels. Like, this isn't a case of, oh, this works really well in a theater but not at home. No. This is a case of, bro, this shit is so cool. Imagine this in a theater. Like the 2-channel stereo mixing I mentioned of the whizzing projectiles and Ramiel's laser slicing through all the rockets is just like, that's already nice. Fuck! And then Ava 3.33 has this opening scene that makes me just wanna... Dude, it's really good. For starters, you can hear Asuka's latex suit crunching when she moves around. I actually saw this movie right when I was really getting into sound effect design, so this was the first time I really noticed that autistic level of detail in Foley. And in a weird way, this actually inspired me. I never really considered the use of Foley in a live-action cinematic level until I saw this movie. Also, that subsequent... from all the explosions going off is so satisfying. And they bring back the scream. They bring back the scream, dog. But now that bad boy's whizzing about at a breakneck pace and whoa, here he comes! Fuck, that's cool. Hey dude, let's just get it over with already. Let's talk about Star Wars. I think the original 3 movies, and then to an extent the prequels, are the best possible example of combining memorable sound effects with cinematic and subtle ones. Like, these sounds have moved a whole toy line and inspired so much creativity from it. Let me elaborate a bit on that point. Back when A New Hope first hit theaters, most sound systems were in mono, being 1 channel, meaning flat. A lot of theaters actually updated to Dolby Stereo, meaning 2 channel, meaning full, thanks to this movie. A lot of theaters, but not all theaters. Sound designer Ben Burt was fully aware of this, and therefore decided to create a mix that would equally complement a mono system as well as a stereo system. He also created a whole world of unique and completely original sounds, all of which stemmed from real-life noises that he'd hear, and then warp and stretch to create something cool and original. So now we have generations of children who, even when they grow up, will forever have all these natural yet still alien sounds embedded into their subconscious. The same way the tune of a catchy song would get stuck in your head. Like, seriously, I attribute a lot of Star Wars' marketability to the effect that something as subtle as a sound effect can have on you as an advertising tool. Darth Vader sounds cool. Buy the really cool mask that has the breathing sound effects when you hit a button. Yeah, this lightsaber toy is cool and all, but what about the one that makes electric noises when you wave it around and smack it against a tree? That's even cooler. Here's a TIE fighter. What sound is a kid gonna make when he has it hover around when he plays with it? And those sounds will never leave. Also, side note, autistic people are more perceptive to sounds than normal people. Explains a lot, doesn't it? Not about me, about Star Wars fans. Fuck off. One of the biggest disappointments of the new Disney movies is they haven't done anything very unique or interesting with sound. The coolest things we've got is that the blasters now have LFE, so they're more cinematic. And the tremolo of that TIE fighter taking off is... yeah, this is cool. But this is all just like remixing of old sounds that already existed. The end result isn't new marketability, it's nostalgic marketability. And I think in a really subtle way, this might be a small part of what spiked the overall marketability for toys of the new characters and icons. I mean, to be fair, there's actually a lot of things that spike this, but I strongly feel that sound is a very subtle part of it. And that's the whole point of sound. It's subtle. You're not supposed to notice it, but something in the back of your mind was thinking that Boba Fett was even cooler because he had cool footstep sounds to go with his cool outfit. What the fuck, that's Foley. Holy shit, Star Wars has memorable Foley. The sound design in Star Wars could seriously be its own video. This is a franchise that banks half of its appeal off of it. Aesthetic certainly helps, but fuck off if you're gonna tell me that a bunch of disco-loving boomers were totally hip to these space wizards in their dorky helmets. No fucking way, at least not intentionally. To see that nerd shit, they'd have to be wowed by the experience of watching an exciting movie. And what really made that experience, that truly cinematic experience, was this amazing sound mix. Many people instantly attributed that to the editing and the music, maybe some to the solid script. They'd all be right, but what Foley realizes and ties all these things together is the sound effects. What makes this whole thing feel immersive and cinematic is the sound effects and the mixing. Take this scene where the Rebel blockade runner is being boarded by the Imperials. Let's watch it with just music and the bass shots. No sound effects. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good. Sort of suspenseful, the music and the editing does a lot, but, you know, interesting. Now let's just go ahead and add the sound effects back into that. Well, holy fuck, that's way cooler. Not only are we now immersed into the idea of space as a setting, we also get an added punch or shock to really drive home the sounds of the space war. The Star Destroyer locking into the Rebel ship being one of those things that we can truly only fathom thanks to a sound effect. We don't actually see the process of them docking the ship, we just kinda hear it.
What's that?
And it holds our attention and fear on these inconsequential nobodies that are terrified of this sound due to the occurrence it merely hints at. This to them in the space future would be the same as us in the modern world walking through a shady part of town, and then suddenly hearing a scream and then 3 volleying gunshots. When you hear that, you get the fuck out of there. The trench run's another moment of pure goosebumps. It's inherently cool because there's a really high stake to it, and all the main Alliance characters are very likable. The music is blaring and it's super cool, the editing is fast, taking advantage of the limited shots that mostly are shown inside of the cockpit of the X-Wing, and that distorted Rebel chatter really sticks with you.
We're passing through the magnetic field.
And those X-Wing lasers, like, dude. And those Death Star lasers, like, dude. And those TIE fighter sounds like, dude! And when the music dips out to just focus on the sound effects for those 3 other trench runs, like, dude. Don't agree with me? Watch this again on mute. In fact, let me do you a solid. Let me add some plain sound effects to this, like just some regular-ass, basic stock noises. And for the sake of being fair, I'll even leave in the John Williams soundtrack because it's awesome. Whoa, that was weird. Why the fuck is a spaceship making World War II bomber noises? Even just the targeting computer clicking higher and higher as they get closer and closer to the exhaust port. It works as a very subtle clue to the pilot's progress, in a moment where the music has completely stopped to put focus on the eerie tension that can be created by just the sound effects. Also, shout out to the Wilhelm Scream. I kinda hate this scream now because everybody overuses it, but it's still wicked memorable, and the fact that everyone reuses it so much shows how memorable it is. Okay, I'll stop talking about Star Wars now. So, did we learn something today? Yeah, maybe, but I think I just wanted to talk about cool sound effects. But hey man, remember what I said here. Especially if you have any interest in content creation, because sound effects can really go an extra 2,000 miles in selling your work. And there should be no greater weight placed on a cinematic mix over a very distinct and memorable one. Your objective should be a perfect combination, and your highest priority above all else should be that it always sounds good on every single type of sound system. Otherwise, you're gonna be like 60K in debt from film school, and you're gonna have your thesis film playing on like a TV somewhere. And hey, it sounded fine when you heard it on your computer, but what's this? Oh god, I can't hear the characters talking. Oh god, the sound effects are overpowering the music. Oh god, you can't even hear the subtle effect I put in. Oh god, there's no LFE response. Oh no, it's clipping. Oh, this is awful. What do I do? What have I done?